Welcome to the True Stories of World War II podcast, where the stories are true and about World War II. I'm your host, Holden, better known on the internet as True Stories of World War II. Today I have with me Eric, better known on the internet as Surplus and Stuff. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric. I run the account Surplus and Stuff on Instagram. I've had it for like almost 4 years now. I've worked within the firearms industry for almost 5 years, doing anything from sorting brass to RSOing and building holsters.
Awesome. I chose to have Eric on the show, just like he said. It's going to be interesting to talk to somebody who works in the firearm industry as well as a collector. We talk to a lot of collectors, but not exactly the people that are working on the more legal side of buying and selling firearms, as you might say. Also, we're going to talk coins and get into some other stuff. Before we get too far, as always, I want to pitch our sponsorship program. If you're interested in sponsoring one of these videos, you can go ahead and do that for just $1. Send me a message on Instagram. If you want to sponsor us at the $5 mark, as always, I'll send you a sticker. Just know that you don't have to do that. You can always just come and watch the videos and support us in other ways. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, also Eric, Surplus and Stuff. There's no rule against sponsoring your own videos. I highly encourage it, actually. Eric and I have a real weird coincidence in our lives. See, he happens to be related distantly to President McKinley, and I happen to be distantly related to his assassin, which it's kind of an odd coincidence. How do you feel about that, Eric? Are you intimidated?
Very. That's why I actually have my rifle here, just in case I get off the screen. But we were talking about it the other day, and it was just weird how you said, oh, I have a famous ancestor that assassinated a president. I'm like, well, there's only been, what, 4? Just so I randomly take, it better not be President McKinley. And he's like, it is. And then everyone in our group chat started going off about different, like, levels of separation, all that stuff. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't know if anybody read what I was hoping was going to be a controversial post yesterday, but really it didn't kind of move that direction. Everyone was actually being very civil, which is kind of odd for Instagram. But this whole idea that if we look far enough back in anybody's ancestry, you're going to find some unsavory characters. It doesn't really matter who you are. You could be the Pope, and he's probably related to some not so great people. Well, considering the last one had actually been in the German military. Okay, well,
wasn't the last or current Pope from Argentina or something like that?
Yeah, he's from Argentina.
Yeah, so he has some probably ancestors. Don't ask about his abuela's SS rank. That's kind of bad.
Yeah, well, and the one before him actually was in the German military. So, yeah, but I think in general, you don't want to go poking around in other people's ancestry too much, because they're just gonna go poking around at your ancestry, and it's just the whole idea, you have an exponential amount of ancestors. So I've been talking about at 13 generations, right? 13 generations back, you have over 16,000 16th grandparent or 13th grandparents.
So on that point, I actually got mine back to 680 somehow in Europe, just going through and start clicking, going down a rabbit hole one night. That was really weird.
Yeah, I've kind of done got to the same place in a couple of spots on Ancestry, but honestly, after 3 or 4 generations, I start to question it. I'm I don't know how accurate this is, but maybe it might be accurate, but it might also be total BS. I don't know.
Let's see, I'm trying to find it on my phone. I sent it to my friend. So somehow, on your point, how much can you trust it? Some duchess in Germany or Italy or something like that from 1689, and then just keep clicking, hoping.
Well, that's the kind of the trick. If you can get back to somebody like that, like they probably have really well documented ancestry. Like if you can get to like a royal, like that's like the key, because then like they've been keeping track because they were actually like the people that were literate.
And also inbred.
Just a
But
little. I mean, just a little bit. Like not a lot. Not a lot of inbreeding.
all of World War One, they had the what the German king, the British king, and the French.
Oh yeah, they were all cousins basically.
Or no, sorry, the Tsar of Russia. They were all cousins trying to fight each other.
Well, there's a picture of the Tsar of Russia next to the King of England in like the early 1900s, and they could be twins. Like that's how like closely related they were. But you know what? You want to hear some freaky genealogy facts? I guess it's more biology than genealogy. You are no more than a hundred cousins from any living human being. So, and we're talking anybody on any continent. So, like people that are in your continent that are like the same race, it's probably drastically less than that. So, we're all a lot more like related than we'd care to admit. And like honestly, like some fun biology fact here is there's more diversity in like orangutans than there is in like the entire human population, like genetic diversity.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Well, the problem, like, I don't want to like stomp on anybody's religious convictions, but like humans evolved from such a small group of humans, like probably less than 20,000. Like everyone living today can trace their DNA to less than like 20,000 individuals. We're pretty related to each other. So
Yeah.
that's my tangent on you're probably married to your cousin.
And aren't you from the middle of nowhere where everyone's related? Actually related?
Well, I mean, I grew up about 2 hours from the UP of Michigan, and it's pretty bad up there. If you're listening from Michigan, I'm sorry, but man, like, tell your brunkle it's gonna be okay. But another interesting fact about us, besides that, what my ancestor killed your ancestor, is that we're both like vaguely Prussian. And every time somebody that claims Prussian ancestry, like I find that interesting because it's a lot more interesting than when someone goes, "Yeah, I'm German." I'm like, Germany wasn't a place until like the late 1800s, right? It wasn't even like an idea. It was just a bunch of states.
That kind of liked each other, but kind of had to do it out of necessity. Yeah.
Yeah, my family, I don't you see the flag in the background if you're watching the video, is Schleswig-Holstein, pretty contested area of Europe in general, because I mean it was claimed by Prussia and Denmark respectively, and it kind of like went back and forth as a territory between the two. I mean, I think probably the only like more contested place in all of Europe would have been Alsace-Lorraine between France and Germany.
But they're always fighting each other, like every couple decades, it seems like. So
Yeah, but there's very few places that traded hands as much as those two areas. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. You run across another Prussian.
speaking of Prussian, kind of have a clip of 8mm for the ordnance rifle, or not the commission rifle for the Gewehr 88. Do you have the same?
Nah, these aren't round tips, but they're
That's for the Maliker.
yeah, they're kind of interesting though because they're individually marked. The rounds are individually stamped with the year 1938. They got the good old dirty bird on them.
That bird gets YouTube demonetized, so don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's why I say dirty bird around here.
Friendship pinwheel, as Brandon Herrera says.
Inverted cross. Or hooked cross. That's the right one.
Okay.
Moving on. And the next topic on the agenda is coins. You mentioned that you're a coin collector, and I've been collecting coins for, I don't know, the better part of about 15 years. So what kind of coins do you like to collect?
More specifically, US coins, but I've been getting into foreign coins as of late just because I went to Europe last summer. You guys followed on my Instagram, um, and started picking up all the old European coins that their respective governments got rid of, and you can get them for really cheap. Uh, so when I was in Greece, there's a little guy who's probably 5'5", pushing a cart through the Plaka in Athens, and he's selling old drachma for 50 cents a piece.
Hmm.
So I bought a stack of it to bring back to the US, and I'll probably make a post about it soon, but they're all very socialist in nature.
Oh, really?
They're like 1939, before the occupation of Greek labor and farms, and it's really weird to see.
Funny you mention that. So one of the obscure things I collect is hyperinflation German currency from like the 20s and 30s. But a lot of it's like that too. Like it has really like socialist imagery. Like there's like the hammer and sickle, like a lot of like farmers and things like that, like rural people depicted on the money. It's kind of interesting because it's like that was a very small bubble in Germany, like the whole like socialist farmer idea. Like it didn't last very long, but it was very popular imagery.
Didn't last very long because Poland kind of got in the way, but
yeah, I don't think we can really blame Poland though. I don't think it was their fault they got invaded from two different sides.
Yeah. That being said, I've been actually trying to find some of that hyperinflation money, but haven't been able to find it for a price that I can afford.
That's kind of funny because I mean, I picked up most of mine cheap, like real cheap.
Every time I see it, people want like $15 and up for it. I'm like, I really don't want to spend that much on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I'll have to send you some links because honestly, like I bought pieces for $1 or $2,
which is worth more than that thing was ever worth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, if you're not familiar with German hyperinflation currency, it's pretty much like the poster child for like inflation, basically, until like Venezuela and Zimbabwe wanted to challenge history by killing their own currency.
They were, quote, bet this won't happen. And then all of a sudden, $40 million. Was it $40 million notes that they had for a while?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's even billion notes, but you could literally, like, the money was so worthless in Germany, you could buy like a carton of eggs for a wheelbarrow full of paper money, or like
still have to pay more.
Yeah, and like it was cheaper to wallpaper a house with money than it was to buy the wallpaper with the money. I don't like my family came over from Germany like 1929, so it was only a couple years after the worst of the hyperinflation. And there's a story of my great-great-grandmother. She'd been saving enough money to like buy the material to make a dress. And by the time like she had saved enough money to buy the material, the money was so worthless she couldn't afford to buy the buttons to make the dress.
And then they come over to the US and have to deal with our depression.
Well, they came over to the US as indentured servants.
But
so sharecroppers basically is the political correct way of saying it. But I mean, they were like stuck, until they paid it off, which in the long run, like it was probably better than staying in Germany where most of their siblings died. But
I'm assuming on the Russian front.
At least one. I'm missing like a whole. So I had my great grandmother came over from Germany as a child, and I know her mother's family history, but I have nothing on her father. So I know he had a few brothers, but I have no idea what happened to them. So
Probably died in the trenches of World War One.
well, so on her mother's side, right? I posted about her brother that died in World War II yesterday, but she had a brother who died in World War I as well. So her brothers were that spread out, like the siblings were that like 20 years, like so they were like spread out enough that one had died in World War I in Frankreich, so France, and one died in Rus, so Russia, in World War II.
Yeah.
But that's just one side. Like that's not even like cousins, and that's not even like my great grandfather's side of the family. And my great grandfather, or excuse me, great great grandfather that migrated to the U.S. in '29 had fought for the Germans in World War One. So he was World War One veteran living in the U.S. and his daughter married a soldier who's my great grandfather who fought in Germany in World War II. So he was a German World War I vet with a son-in-law who was an American World War II vet that fought in Germany. So, yeah.
That'd be interesting.
It's interesting family dynamic, but, the weirdest thing for me was when I started doing that, like the ancestry stuff, and I didn't know that my great-great-grandfather fought for Germany in World War I. But I found out in a weird way because I got the 1930 census report from the U.S., which was the first one they would have been here for, and they'd only been in the States for like a year. And it was marked on the 1930 census report that he was a World War I veteran. I'm like, well, he only got here last year, so I'm thinking he's not a U.S. veteran.
Like, that'd be a little awkward, but okay.
Well, yeah, and then like I couldn't find anything to really like verify that, and he went by an Americanized name, like he changed his name when he came to the States, so I was having a hard time finding the military records, but I'd eventually was able to track down his obituary because he died in the 80s, and it said he was a German World War I veteran. That was it, like one sentence, so that was the only way I was able to like verify it all. But yeah, I mean, we've all got some ancestors that, probably wouldn't invite to the family reunion if we had a time machine.
These days.
Yeah. But yeah, my coin collecting, let's get back to that, has like, I mean, I've been doing it for so long that I've had so many different like interests and over the years. Like I started with like American coins. I collected a full 20th century set, so all the different pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters and half dollars and dollars from the 20th century, which it took me a while because I was doing it while I was younger, and some of those coins are like $20-$30 a piece, so it took a little while to fill it out. And then, I mean, I've been working on a full set of pennies for 15 years, because I've been doing it out of circulation, not buying any. So like you don't find 100-year-old pennies in circulation very often. So
speaking of finding something in circulation, I actually was on a trip to DC with my dad, and we're going through and I hear the sound of a silver quarter, and it was given out as change. And to get a silver coin in change in 2015? It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I've gotten probably 2 or 3 quarters and 3 or 4 dimes since I started collecting. I mean, but that's 15 years and like 8 silver coins probably, and most of them come from when I was cashiering, because you just handle so much money basically. Like your odds are a lot better. And I've also cashiering, I picked up like a red sealed $2 bill once, which is like the 60s run of $2 bills. And actually, like one of my last finds while I was cashiering, somebody paid for like an ice cream cone with like 6 rolls of wheat pennies. So I don't know.
Did you buy them?
Oh yeah, and there was actually 1 or 2 in there that weren't like extremely rare, but they were $4 or $5 pennies, which in the world of pennies, that's pretty good. Because I mean, there's no precious metal value. It's completely numismatic value.
Yeah.
So I did the 20th century set. I worked on pennies for a while. I come back and forth to that. I did the whole state quarter thing because I think everybody living in the mid 2000s did the whole state quarter. I never finished the state park one.
By the time the state park one came around, though, it was so hard.
Oh yeah. I started the dollar presidential coins, and then they stopped circulating them. So there's like, if you're not aware, the U.S. was doing a dollar coin with presidents on them. Well, they kept making them through all the deceased presidents, but they were so unpopular that they kept making them and putting them into warehouses. So we're paying to store dollar coins in warehouses for
that collectors buy. And if you try to use that as store, the person's like, what the hell is this?
Well, yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like, I was working at a manager at a restaurant, and I used to, every once in a while, there'd be a kid working. Like, when I say kid, I'm like 14 to like 15, 16. They'll like, people would pay with a dollar coin, and they'd be completely lost. They'd call a manager over to be like, is this okay? Yeah, it's money. Like,
we kind of have to take it.
Although you don't have to now, I guess. A lot of places are cash free, which don't get me started on the precedent that's setting. But
I mean, that's a European thing, though.
You know, it's funny because, I mean, the area of the world that I'm from and where I've been, like especially down south, like it was the opposite. There'd be a lot of like, cash only, and now things are the other direction. We're going no cash.
When I felt bad for a kid in my group, my school took us to Europe for 3 weeks, and his mom gave him a Discover card.
Yeah, it's no go in Europe.
Yeah, so he goes to the first place and he swipes it or puts a chip in or whatever, and nothing happened. I'm like, we told you not to get that. He's like, my mom gave it to me to use, and I can't use it anymore. I'm like, dude, don't worry, just pay me back when we get stateside. And I withdrew like 400 euros for him. Like, just take it, pay me back.
And I can't remember. I think my first credit card, it was either a Discover card or something else, but it was like my first ever credit card as an adult. It had like like $1,000 max on it too, because I mean I had zero credit, but it was like almost useless because it was one of those brands where nobody takes it. But yeah.
That's why I don't have a credit card working at a gun store.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Because my dumbass would be like, oh, hey, there's a gun I want, and now I have to pay it back in 2 months.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I talked about that with you before, where like I think if I worked at a gun shop, I'd spend every penny that I made. But the thing about credit cards, though, dude, is like that's like a life hack, basically, because nobody tells you this growing up, but you have to like spend money and pay it back to build credit. And if you don't have credit, you can't like get a car loan, or like even like renting. Sometimes they look at your credit score, and like, but you can't build credit unless you like take on debt, which is kind of a backward system if you think about it. But
yeah.
So I don't think I had my first credit card till I was like, I don't know, 20 or 21. Like you should get one when you're like 16 and have your parents co-sign on it, pay for $20 of gas a month and pay it off, because man, like I'm telling you, you got to build credit.
Yeah, I'm going to be 23 in like a week and a half. And I realized I should probably get one.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I think people get scared because they're afraid to spend money they don't have. But like if you, like mine set as like an automatic payment. So like I pay for gas on my credit card. That's about it. And it automatically gets paid at the end of the month off my debit card. Like I don't even think about it. So as long as you don't spend it, or you don't use it on things you know you're not going to pay off at the end of the month.
Don't buy one of these on a credit card.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've impulse bought guns with my debit card, but I knew I had the money.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah. Those days are kind of over though. when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a lot more like disposable income. I used to just like go into the gun store and be like, oh, that's a cool Arasaka. I guess I'll just buy it. Like now that'd be like
$200.
that'd be like a serious decision these days. Like I'd have to like sit down and make pros and cons lists, like eat ramen noodles for 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah, I feel.
yeah, man. But what am I guess my new thing with coins though is like I've kind of done what I want to do with U.S. coins. I mean, my hopes of finding a bunch more 100-year-old pennies are pretty much dashed. So,
Try going for European coins.
well, that's kind of what I have been working on. Sort of. I've been doing the whole 1 ounce silver bullion coins from every like country. I'm trying to do a set of every country that offers the 1 ounce silver bullion. So like American
Silver's so damn expensive now.
Right. So I'm kind of at a hiatus, but it fluctuates so much. But I have like Silver Eagles from America, and Maple Leafs from Canada, Britannicas from England, and Philharmonics from the Netherlands. So I'm kind of like I pretty much
How
got.
much do you want for the Dutch one?
I think you could
Give me
probably.
a message.
Yeah, I'll send you a message. You can pick them up pretty cheap though, honestly.
I fell in love with the Netherlands when I was there, so I have a lot of Dutch things laying around now. So it's always fun.
Yeah, those ones they're kind of interesting coins because like they're not like. I mean, they're not ugly, but they're not like as beautiful, as like an American Silver Eagle, but they're based on the Philharmonics, so they're like music themed, I guess. But I pretty much have all the countries in the Americas and all the countries in Europe that have them. So I'm kind of like I'm working on my Asia set now of silver 1 ounce coins, but there's some countries where it's not like they're not priced based on their silver value. They're very priced on their like numas or their
The collector value.
Yeah, the collector value. So like the pandas in China, that's their silver coin. They're like $10 or $15 above the actual melt price. So at that point, like you're not really investing in the silver, you're investing in like the commemorative
value.
Yeah.
But now, Chinese bots listening, please don't do anything to me. With things going with China how it is, it might be a little sketchy to get them.
Yeah, I mean, I do not buy precious metals on the internet. Some people are gonna bash me for that. I mean, there's a couple people that really push that, but for one, I get better deals with local people. For one, I can usually get what I want anyway. It's usually cheaper, and I know it's real because they're accredited, licensed businesses.
Don't buy silver from wish.com.
Yeah, I mean, there's some places I trust on the internet, like ApeMex and some of like the other like actual like grading agencies and stuff. But you have to buy like pounds of silver from them to even like make it worth it. So I don't know. Coins are a hard thing. It's a lot like buying like German relics on the internet. Like you don't know if it's gonna be real or not when it shows up at your house.
Speaking of a German relic, I was in Greece and a guy had a Stahlhelm from late 30s, early 40s. And it was all rusted and stuff like that. And it's like 300 euro. Can't do it. I walked away and it's like 70 euro. I'm like, okay. So I bought it for 70 euros. Drug that thing around Europe for 2.5 more weeks. And I was like, might as well. Won't find one in the US for that price. And people in my group were like, why did you buy that? That's going to take up so much room. I'm like, no, it won't. And I don't need some of the stuff in my suitcase anymore, like socks.
Yeah, I've definitely been on trips like that. When I was living in Okinawa, it's an island south of Japan. It's pretty famous, like Battle Okinawa, that kind of thing.
But didn't know about it.
Yeah, right. Never heard of it, but I I used to go up to mainland Japan about every 6 months or so when I was living out there, and a couple of trips were like that. Like I brought like a backpack or a suitcase, a small suitcase, because I mean luggage is super expensive over there. So I just like travel with a backpack and like throw all the clothes away just to bring cool stuff back with you. Like,
Yeah, that was like that. And getting ready to leave Paris, just like, I don't need this boxes, a case of cigars, those go in. Don't need that. The street cigarettes I bought illegally in Greece, yeah, those go back in.
yeah, the single cigarettes I bought.
No, it was packs for like €1 a pack when everywhere else was selling for like 10.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It was the sketchiest thing to do. And that's the only black market I've ever participated in.
Weird. I think my worst like flying story. I had a lighter in like the breast pocket of a shirt that was like in my checked bag in Japan. And like that was the biggest deal ever there. Like they made me like dump out the bag in like a security area and like go through the whole bag. And it was literally like a lighter in a checked bag.
My going through security in the Netherlands, I had like a thing of jam I picked up at our hostel or something, and it was in my carry-on. I didn't think about it. And go through, and he opens my bag. And he takes it, and I was like, "Oh, it's jam." Whatever. Puts it back and sends me on my way.
Yeah, I've learned that round, like cylindrical objects like that look a lot like plastic explosives on the TSA screens. Like specifically candles, like look a lot like C4. So if you listen to this, never put a candle in your check bag.
Yeah, make sure you just ship it normal airmail. It'll be fine.
Oh, and if you're gonna travel with like 5K, make sure it's in hundreds, not 20s, because 20s looks like a lot more money than it actually is.
And yeah, they might take that.
Uh, yeah, I'm
Also,
not.
let your
Yeah,
bank know where you're going because you don't want to be in a spot where you don't have access to your card when you need to get money.
that's smart. I don't. It must have been Germany where I was, where I mean, it was a long. I mean, 10 years ago, so pretty much everywhere just took cash, and like the bank, like the ATM fee to pull cash off an American card was like $40.
When I went, it was only like 4.
Yeah, I'm sure things have gotten better in the last decade or so. I mean, since the economy's kind of rebounded a little bit here and it got more, well, before this year. But
Yeah. So what's next on the topics?
well, I kind of want to get into like your professional career as a gun enthusiast and
So
employee.
professional career right now, full-time student. But other than that, I've worked in the gun industry for almost 4 years now. Uh, Worked at a gun store sorting 5.56 brass from 5.56 blanks for 4 hours a day, and then tumbling them, getting them all clean and ready to be reloaded, then putting them in a decapping press where you take the primer out, trim it, and it gets it ready to be loaded. So I did that and then audited all of their 4473s for those in the US who bought firearms. You already know what that is. It's a form you have to fill out and make sure it's all good. Those in other countries really don't know what you do. Um, and then after that, it was after the election, by like 2 or 3 months, I got laid off because the gun industry kind of died down after the post-election fears. And then that summer, I worked at a safe manufacturing company, a machine shop. So I ran a CNC machine and moved big saves all over the place. After that, uh, quit because school started again. They really weren't going to work with my schedule. And then went up to a local gun range one day I've been going to since I was like, what, 14? And they're like, "You want a job?" Yeah, sure. And got a job as an RSO. And after that, moved for school, stuck here for the foreseeable future, and now work as part-time RSO, part-time rental counter guy, the guy who knows old guns. Um, I clean a lot of the guns and sell stuff and run their social media, and also work at the sister company's holster manufacturing part. So I make Kydex holsters.
Interesting. We talked about the holster stuff before. I'm thinking about getting the logo on one. I think it'd look pretty tight. So, I mean, obviously you've held a lot of jobs in the gun industry, and I haven't worked formally in the gun industry at all. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of gun people, good, bad, or indifferent. I bought a lot of guns, been to a lot of gun shows, and hung around a lot of gun people, but I don't have like the actual like professional experience. So it's kind of interesting to pick your brain a little bit about that. So what do you like about working in the gun industry?
Honestly, the people. I like either dealing with the brand new shooter, brand new gun person who is really interested in it and they want to learn and that's all they want to do, or the old timer where they've been around the block, they know what they're doing, but they're willing to sit down and take their time and teach me something. And then being able to teach someone something that I've learned off the old timer and pass that experience on and that knowledge on is something really amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can definitely relate. I mean, I obviously like I haven't like worked professionally, but I've spent a lot of time working with friends or family or friends of family that want to learn how to shoot. Hey, take me to the range. I'm thinking about buying my first gun. Can you recommend me something? I've worked with people who were getting ready to take their conceal and carry class, and they didn't want that to be the first time they've ever fired a gun.
For those looking to get a concealed carry, don't be the first time you shoot your gun, the first time you go to the class. Get some training beforehand, have a friend take you, seek out the help. Don't be the guy that shows up to the class with no experience. It's kind of dangerous that way.
Yeah, I one of the worst weapons malfunctions I've ever seen was when I was helping somebody that was getting ready to take their test. They were shooting, I don't even know what it was. It was a compact, either 40 or 9, one of the two, but it had like a laser built in to the actual frame of the gun, and it was a bad design, because like the battery cover for the laser was like internal on the bottom slide, and when the weapon had fired, somehow the battery cover came loose and it had like jammed into the weapon, so it didn't fully cycle, like it didn't eject the round, and it tried to like chamber the next round, and I'm like, do not pull the trigger on that thing. Like,
please don't make yourself a hand grenade.
Yeah, please do not blow me up. And it was even worse with like an inexperienced shooter, because I'm like, they didn't even realize how close they were to like having like a real problem.
Yeah, safety squints are real when new shooters are around.
Oh, you got to pay attention, man. Like I've shot, like, people just assume that everybody in the military is like a weapons expert. Far from it, man. Like, I've been on ranges in the military that are more scary than shooting in like the civilian world. Like, I was at this won't make sense if you weren't in the Marine Corps, but a night shoot, basically, where you're shooting at night, moving towards a target. So it's like a whole line of people in the dark walking towards a target. It's pretty terrifying, honestly. You have a guy holding, like, in theory, who's holding you from behind, so like to keep everybody in line, so nobody's like walking in front of this line of people that's shooting. But we were just waiting for the command to walk forward, and somebody ND's negligent discharge right in front of his feet, like 2 feet in front of him, like 2 people to the right of me, so maybe 10 feet. That was terrifying, man. I'm like, well, they grabbed the dude and just like chucked him off the line, but I've never been that close to a round impacting. like on the ground. Rounds over my head, but never like next to my feet before. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience on working as a RSO or range safety officer, um, getting hit with ricochets. Um, that's kind of freaky. Had a guy ND on a cold range. I'd just take my air pro off. I called range cold, cleared all of them. Apparently he wasn't paying attention, had an ND, and that made me jump a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to ND in the civilian world, but it's even bigger deal in the military. Like you can get ripped off a range that like you needed to qualify with, and you can get like bad paperwork. And like the worst part is they're gonna pull you off the range, and like you're gonna have to go back later to qualify whatever you were doing, which is super inconvenient.
That being said, with new shooters, it's more actually it's not as common with new shooters to have an ND. It's the guys that have been around the block and tend to get complacent.
Oh yeah, it's the people that they're way too confident and cocky. Like, I mean, you should always treat a weapon like it's a weapon, right? Like, and I think people forget that sometimes. It's just like, I don't know. You can never be 100% confident with a gun. Like, there's always like, especially with things like, I don't know, Glocks that don't have safeties and like literally.
They do have a safety.
Yeah.
To be imported into the United States, you have to have a safety on your pistol.
Right.
It's
a trigger safety. But you can. The only pistol I've ever seen ND was a Glock because it's just so easy, man. A lot of guys learn incorrectly how to draw from a conceal and carry. Like, you do not grab the trigger when you're drawing a pistol from a conceal and carry rig.
Especially when you have an appendix pointed at your junk.
Yeah.
It's a good way to castrate yourself.
It's a good way to cheddar bob yourself. Oh, man.
The scariest experience working as an RSO was the very first time someone pointed a loaded pistol at my head. So
yeah, I'd probably kill him.
I had my armor on, and she was shooting, had a low-cut shirt, and brass is hot, and brass kind of goes everywhere. Goes down her shirt, she freaks out, pistol in hand, finger on the trigger, turns it, and points it at my head. So
honestly, every time I've seen something like that happen in the Marine Corps, it was the exact same thing. It was 5.56 shell, like hit somebody in the back of the neck, and they freaked out with a loaded weapon, and it flagged somebody on either side of them. I thank God I've never seen anybody been shot because of it, but I've heard stories of similar things. And when I was doing casualty reports, at one point I saw somebody that got shot through the back plate armor.
With what? I mean, at 5.5? Did they get vibe checked by that?
No idea. They were wearing a plate jacket, and they were killed in a live fire accident. That's about as much as I can tell you.
Jesus.
But yeah, it's definitely like, it's just as dangerous training with guns, like going into a firefight, honestly. You have to respect the stuff, and man, you see some dumb stuff, I'm sure. And I'm sure you've seen all kinds of dumb stuff working at a range.
So I wasn't working that day, but a guy was shooting rented our Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum. Blew his thumb off.
Yeah.
Because of the cylinder gap, those who shoot revolvers should know on the cylinder, gas vents out the side. He was shooting it like a normal pistol, gas vented, and took like a 1/4 inch of his thumb completely off.
You know, those big revolvers can be really dangerous, especially the inexperienced shooters. The revolvers tend to do this, like especially like 500 mags, not so much 357s, but sometimes like 44s. The way that like you get that first shot off,
the recoil will actually pull the second shot.
Yeah, it'll pull the second shot right into your face if you're not paying attention. And it was I can't remember how old she was. There was a pretty young girl a couple of years ago.
Shot the instructor.
I know a girl shot herself in the face not a couple of years ago, and she was pretty young. I want to say like 14. It killed her.
So guys, bringing your girlfriends out shooting for the first time, and if you have a large caliber revolver, only have one in the cylinder.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with being a girl or being weak. You just don't know what to expect if you haven't been shooting. Like you can learn how to shoot one of those guns. You shouldn't just grab one off the shelf and assume that it's going to be like a 22, you know?
And usually it's guys wanting to show off to their girlfriends. Being like, oh my God, and be funny about it. It's what I've seen.
Yeah, I try to stay up to date on all the crazy gun mishaps going on in the country. I mean, I think it's part of being a responsible gun owner is knowing what not to do and what mistakes other people have made.
Story time. Had a guy when I was working RSO again, have a 460 Magnum revolver. And on those, they're compatible with 454 Casull and 45 Colt. He was loading 44 mag through it, so blowing out the cases.
Yeah.
It was really nasty. And he also put a vertical foregrip on a pistol, which makes it an any other weapon under the NFA, super felony. So I tell him, hey, you have to take that off, and also you're shooting the wrong caliber through that, so it's kind of dangerous. He's like, no, it's fine, it's for hunting. So I tell him, like, okay, well, the game warden, when he sees it, isn't going to be real happy, and it's probably not going to give you a warning and throw you in jail. No, It's fine. My FFL told me it's fine. Sure, they did. He's actually banned from 3 different stores in town.
Yeah, that kind of stuff scares me, man, because there's people running around with guns like that. You know, I've seen some weapons in the real world, like in the wild, that shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? Like,
high points.
Yeah, I mean, well, for what? I recently shot a 40 cal high point. You know, it's really clunky and awkward, but it feels pretty solid for $100 pistol. Honestly,
I would rather take a high point over a car arms. Because when I run out of ammo, I have a brick.
True. I always thought a high point would be a great gun for like a roofer because you could pound nails in with it and you have a self-defense weapon. But I don't know. Like, there's guns floating around in the U.S. that are just like insanity. Like, there's a lot of like Japanese machine guns and German machine guns that may not have been like super documented after World War II that are kind of just out there.
And they weren't amnesty registered in '68, so it's even worse. And yeah,
things like Japanese knee mortars, which are
don't put those on your knees.
Completely legal to buy in Canada, by the way.
Yeah, don't put those on your knees if you have one, unless you want a broken femur.
Oh, and people don't realize you can buy a 203 grenade launcher in the States like 100% legally because they're flare launchers unless
37 millimeter is legal, 40 isn't.
Well, they're flare launchers until you own a grenade, and then they're a grenade launcher. I'm like, okay, that makes -5 cents. All right. So you kind of talked about like some of the crazy stuff you've seen, but like, what like don't you like about the industry? Just the crazies, or is there more to it?
The stupid questions that you can just look up online and get answers to. Swear to God, I will get phone calls. Hey, I want to buy a 223 millimeter rifle. Okay, so you mean 5.56. Okay, we can work with this. What are you looking for? I think a Mini 30. Okay, well, that's in 7.62. We don't have any right now. The whole country doesn't have any guns. Well, what would you recommend? Like, well, we have an AR lower here. It's like $150, and it's like, well, what do I have to do to buy the lower? Well, you need this, 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 and this, and you have to pass a background check. Well, I might have a felony on my record. Can I buy a gun? No. Lawyer up, deal with it later. Sorry, you can't buy one. Hang up. A few minutes later, calls back. Well, why can't I buy it? Dude, you told me you might have a
Yeah,
felony.
you
I'm not
can't buy
talking
a
to you.
gun with a felony.
I'm not going to talk to you. Bye.
Well, it's kind of funny because the laws in that are so like strict that like even if you have your rights restored as a felon, you still can't buy a gun because the question on the form isn't do you have a felony? It's have you been convicted of one? It's not did you get convicted of one and have it expunged or whatever. So
yeah, and even then, it's really difficult. But that's part of it. I hate the old timers that are stuck in their ways.
Dude, those are the scariest dudes.
That don't want to listen to the young person who actually might know a little bit more about them. I had a guy when I was shooting an M1 have a double feed, and I was like, press the clip latch. What's that? As he's digging in the receiver with a knife, trying to pull the case out. Like, no, dude, just clip latch. Like, what? So I was like, mind if I? And he hands it to me. I pop the clip out, and he's like, how would you know how to do that? I own one. It's not that difficult. Well, you should know how to do that. You're so young.
Yeah, well, that's honestly to me, man, is like people, they have weapons that they're not comfortable with in general. Like, the most common thing I think like shooting in the military was all kinds of like weapons like malfunctions, right? Like you get like a failure to fire, well, rack it back and try again. Like you get double feeds, stovepipes, but people are just
That's
a lot.
overboard.
Yeah, that one's bad too. I mean, I've seen audible pops before. Like that's pretty darn scary when you get a round halfway stuck down a barrel or something. But
Story time again. Had a guy coming into our range. He wanted to rent our rigger PC carbine. We showed him how to load the magazine properly. He jammed a 9mm into the barrel backwards, having the live primer in the case itself backwards by 10mm. We couldn't safely clear it because we have a primer.
yeah.
And it's somewhat
What do you
contained.
do? Poke it with a cleaning rod right in the primers.
Yeah, and then it goes off in grenades. Yeah, so that's when safety squints come into effect. So hope you have those.
Yeah. I mean, I the only thing you could do at that point would be pull the lead out of the round, dump all the powder out, and then poke it.
Yeah, so that's what we did. But we charged him like $400 because we didn't know if he destroyed our barrel. It's like, no, it's fine. I don't need to pay. I'm like, dude, you broke our gun. You broke the barrels alone are 500. So you broke it. We have to charge you. No, it's fine. And then he was telling me the bullet did a backflip in the chamber and he loaded it right.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know, but like 98% of problems with like ARs, drop the magazine, stick your fingers through the magazine well, and pull the rounds out. Like there you go. I know some of y'all live in states that don't have magazine wells, but yeah, that you can solve 80%, 90% of your problems just by clearing the your ammo source and then removing whatever happens to be stuck in the barrel.
Yeah, or mortar it.
Or I guess that is one of my personal favorites. Somebody that has like a jammed weapon, right? And they're trying to get the rounds out, but they still have a magazine full of ammo in the weapon. So they're racking it back, introducing more and more rounds into this jammed chamber. Like,
yeah, don't be gentle with your guns.
Oh, you gotta be forceful, man.
If it's over 100 years old, yeah, be a little gentle. But if it's your AR, don't be afraid to smack it around.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make sure that even with pistols, you got to make sure you actually are chambering around. And if you're being too gentle, you're not actually chambering around.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty forceful, and sometimes I don't even get a round chamber to my AR. I got to hit the forward assist to get the bolt seated right.
Clean your AR.
It's more the other way around. It's just too freaking new.
Shoot more.
Yeah, I really need to shoot more, but this year has been kind of a little messy, to say the least.
Do you have any 223 in stock? No, I haven't seen that in 6 months. Oh, are you sure? Can you check in the back for me? Yeah, I checked yesterday for myself. We don't have any.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I have ammo, but I don't want to blow through it because I don't know if I'm ever going to find any more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot of stories from the gun shop and the do's and don'ts of gun safety. And I mean,
when you're coming into the gun store with a cased firearm, ask if you can uncase it. It's a good way to have a pistol pointed at you or a shotgun pointed at you because you were thinking you're robbing the place.
What is the joke lately with all the people wearing masks? It's like, oh, this is the longest line to rob the bank I've ever been in.
Yeah, first time I went to a gun store with my mask on, I was just like, it was one of my buddy's shops, so it's fine. I'm like, dude, this is so uncomfortable. I am not having fun with this. He's like, why? It's for our safety. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna rob your store.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me. I don't know that I've been in a gun shop with a mask on yet, but
Speaking of, sorry, do you want to check out one of my more unique rifles I have?
Sure.
Something I've made a post about in the past. It is an Ishapur 410 shotgun. Converted.
Oh, yeah.
I got it last year for my birthday. And then got 1 box of ammo for it, so I'm kind of afraid to shoot it. But something you don't see very often. Ian McCall made a video on it, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the few people listening or watching that's ever handled one, honestly. And that's just because I worked with a guy who had like an insane Enfield collection. He had one of everything. Like he even had like one of the grenade launcher converted ones. That was pretty sweet.
Tennis ball launchers now.
Yeah, tennis ball launcher.
There you go. Don't get your buddy in trouble.
Well, I'm sure it's legal. He was one of those really like on the up and up guys, which I applaud people that are. I mean, I don't like the idea of people running around with a bunch of illegal stuff, but I mean, some people are much more by the books than others. I digress. That's really about it, honestly, man. Like,
any questions besides gun stuff you want to ask me?
Besides gun stuff.
I mean, collecting wise.
I mean, like, so I know you're into coins and you're into guns. I mean, is there anything else that you like to collect?
Old ammo, helmets, anything to do with World War II?
That's a great question for you. What is it about the helmets, man? Like, it doesn't do anything for me.
So, to me, it's just a fascinating thing that before World War II, no country, or World War I, no country had a metal helmet. And the fact that they decided to pretty much innovate, starting in France, of we're losing too many guys from head injuries. Let's try something that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Because I mean, I know a couple of guys who are really into helmet collecting, and I even have a friend that's like local here who, I mean, he has a huge collection. For one, I don't have the room. Like, I think it takes a lot of room if you're going to get a serious helmet collection.
I have like 23, and yeah, it takes up a lot of room.
Yeah.
So this is an M26 Adrian, so not the actual World War I Adrian. I actually have one in my room right now, but I didn't think to bring it out. So this is the Adrian helmet that kind of started my collection off. My uncle gave it to me.
Interesting.
And since then, it kind of has gone all over the place. Like I mentioned earlier, helmet and a German helmet that I picked up in Greece. Adrian helmets from World War I and World War II I got for like under $30 when they're like $200 helmets.
Yeah, that's the other thing for me is like, I mean, I don't have the space for one. I'm not like super into helmets, and like three, they're super expensive.
Yeah.
And like I personally like I'm more into like guns than anything, and guns are expensive already, so I can't have that many expensive hobbies, or I'm like gonna be perpetually broke. Like I'm not already, but.
And then another thing, old ammo. Since really my collection dates from 1886 to 1986, so 100-year span, with one of the actually first smokeless powder cartridges in the world that I have right here is 8mm Lebel flat nose or round nose.
I have just want something similar. I have it's the ammo for the rifle before the Arisaka Type 99, but it's round nose ammo too.
So Ian McCollum, if you're watching this, no, you can't have this. Yes, I have 32 French long. No, you can't have that either.
I have some original Nambu ammo too, and that stuff's not easy to come by.
$5 around, I think.
Yeah, I have I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe, and yeah.
In my ammo collection, I have close to 1,000 pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of ammo, but not a ton. And it's just most of the ammo, like the old stuff that I have, is things that have been gifted to me. Like it's not something I've like actively went out in search of.
If
Once
you're
again,
looking to get rid of it, I mean, let me know.
Yeah, I definitely will. But yeah, I like my collection it's been so focused on like guns and stuff. Like all the accessories and things have kind of been like an afterthought, honestly.
Is that a canteen on the back by your flag?
Yeah, that's a 1944 dated one.
I saw it. I'm like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, those are relatively
Easy to find.
available and cheap. That one came from a flea market, but
what, $5 probably?
yeah, it's actually full of Iwo Jima sand.
I thought you were gonna say whiskey.
Somewhere else. Yeah, actually, you can't really see it, but there's a whole shelf full of stuff right there. It's kind of my little display. What I keep out. I have all kinds of stuff though, and I'm kind of like limited for space right now. Unfortunately, I'd eventually like to live in like a house and have like a whole like office dedicated to the collection. And
yeah, and then last thing, super controversial. I've gotten a lot of hate messages in my inbox about it. Is UN stuff I like to collect. A few of our mutual followers and friends have messaged me hating on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unique. I mean, I think that stuff's it's kind of hard to come by. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people collecting it.
I had to search the deep parts of eBay for the badge and a beret, just trying to find bits and pieces for a paper I was writing.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have anything against it. I think the UN has kind of been not really useful or helpful for a long time, but
I mean, I wrote a paper on it, so
I like to watch some of the speeches from like crazy like third world dictators in the UN and just like the crazy stuff they say about the US. Like there's a famous Hugo Chavez speech where he calls George Bush the actual devil. Like he doesn't compare him to the devil. He just says he is the devil.
Was this what, in 2004?
2004, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic about the US invading Iraq, so.
He has a lot of stuff. It's mostly about this like hotly like contested coup. I think it's 2002 in Venezuela, where Hugo Chavez was president. He was overthrown, right, in a coup. He came back, which is like crazy in its own regards, but like it's been like it's been like
go ahead.
It's been like 20 years and like there's still no proof that the US was involved, but like the US was probably involved.
Well, especially with a coup d'etat where typically the person that's getting ousted is executed.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he wasn't is surprising.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I want to say the military was against him because a military guy was instated briefly as
Yeah.
president, but like there was just like mass like uproar in the streets, and they like stormed the prison, and he got released and was reinstated as the dictator, and he served until he died. And then this poor other guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, he got kind of thrown in an absolute mess.
There's I forgot what African country it is. They would have, on average, a coup d'etat every 18 months for I think, 10 years.
Yeah, I don't want to get into U.S. Imperialism in South America, but we pretty much cause a coup there about every 18 months or so.
Different topic for another podcast.
Yeah, I could talk all day about that.
Stay tuned for next episode.
That's a pretty good place to end, honestly. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to talk to you. We've been anticipating this one for a while. I'm sure we could do a whole nother podcast just on crazy gun stories and
Or coup d'etats.
Coup d'etats in Latin America that the U.S. has caused. I think we could do 12 podcasts on that, honestly. One per country, probably.
And then one per country's multiple ones that they've had over the years, yeah.
Yep.
Or the failed one in Venezuela where they had E5 or E6 lead the entire thing.
Man, don't get me started. We could talk all day about this stuff. So, if you got this far in the video, thanks for watching. Make sure you go check out Surplus and Stuff on Instagram. His link's going to be below, as well as all of my links. If you're interested in sponsoring one of these crazy rambling videos that don't always seem to have a point, go ahead and send me a message on Instagram. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video with my good buddy in the mood for real history, who I just met and isn't really a good buddy, but hopefully we will be by the end of the video. Eric, you got anything you want to end us on today?
Have fun, be safe. Don't do anything stupid with your guns, please. Make sure they're always unloaded when you clean them. Don't want to hear about any desk pops you might have later.
Good. Stay out of jail, but if you do end up in jail, be sure to quickly establish dominance.
Lawyer up.